My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. And I never expect to see you anymore.
I'm Tim Space. I'm on the board of the Powell-Liberty Historical Society. And we've been blessed to have Rich Baker and Brent Davis come tonight to talk about bluegrass and kind of all the other historical things that kind of go along with it. And I'm going to kind of let them introduce themselves somewhat. I know Rich because I worked with them at PERS for a number of years, and I left, and now I work with them again. Ohio Wesley, so I'm really guy. He's a great guy, and he's been a long time host of the Bluegrass Ramble. If anybody for church out on Saturday night,
oh yeah,
and, every third Saturday he's on there, and I always listen much longer when he's on there than the other two host part. I enjoy his insight. So. Like I said, I've been looking forward to tonight for a long time, so I appreciate you guys coming in. So it's fun.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Many of you went through a brief blizzard to get here, so we appreciate it.
Either they're really interested in bluegrass or there's a door prize that I don't know about.
Told that. How many of you lost power the end of last week? Just a few of you did? Just a few. That's great. Well, I was out for 30 hours, which didn't do much for the Klondike bars I had in my freezer. But anyway, things are back up and running. So we're delighted to be here tonight, and thanks for coming out. We're going to talk tonight about a uniquely American musical art form called bluegrass, and in particular, Columbus's role in the growth and development and popularity of bluegrass music. And as Tim mentioned, I've had the good fortune of being co-host of a radio program that's been on for 48 years now on WOSU. And I am enjoying now my 40th year on that program. So I obviously started when I was 12. Anyway, I appreciate anybody who listens to the Bluegrass Ramble. If you haven't had a chance to listen, it's every Saturday, starting at 7 p.m. and it broadcasts at 89.7 on the dial or streams live worldwide. So you can listen to it on the WOSU app or through your smart speaker or wherever it might be. And we entertain you with traditional American bluegrass music for 4 hours every Saturday. So hope you can join us sometime. It's my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker tonight. Brent Davis has a long history in music and in presentations and content development. He's a journalist, he's a historian, he's an author, he's a musician, and for many years in public broadcasting, and some of that time at WOSU here in Columbus, he was a content developer for a lot of the programs that you probably enjoyed on WOSU over the years. And he continues in that vein, although he is retired from WOSU, he continues doing all of the things pretty much that I just mentioned in a variety of different contexts. Right now, you might enjoy something called Bluegrass Standard, where Brent is a regular contributor to that online bluegrass music entity that you can read and learn about. So with that introduction, I'd like for you to join me in welcoming Brent Davis.
Thank you, Rich. I didn't know I was the featured speaker. I thought we were doing this together. So don't go far. All right, good.
I'm the color commentator.
Okay, all right. You're the Paul Keels. I am the other guy. All right, good.
I'd rather be Chris Collins.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Columbus, A Bluegrass Babylon is the title of the presentation. A lot of this came from research I did working on Columbus Neighborhoods, which is the WSU documentary series. I was the head of that team that did that. I did 3 of the shows. One of those I did was about the South Side. And when we were doing the South Side, we discovered there was a real link to bluegrass music in the South Side. And that's kind of where the departure was that led to this investigation. And I think the first week I was in town in 2003, I made contact with Rich Baker because I was excited there was a bluegrass radio show and I want to be a part of it and help support it. So, I've counted Rich as a friend since then. And when I learned about this connection, I called Rich immediately and we set about investigating this story. But anyway, let's go ahead and get going here. So first, what is bluegrass? Anybody ever here think they know what bluegrass is? Would you know bluegrass if you heard it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it's a folk music, which means a lot of things, but it's not formally taught. You don't go to a conservatory to learn it, although that's changing. And it's happening right down the road at Denison, in fact. You can get a degree in bluegrass music there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But generally, it's you learn it by playing it with other people. It's really a pretty new genre. It's actually about a year older than rock and roll. And it's really goes back to 1945. And Rich is true in saying it's a unique American music, but it draws from all over. And it has sources fiddle tunes, early country, gospel, shape note singing, Celtic. We all hear the Celtic, Scottish, and Irish stuff in it. That's obvious. A lot of blues in it, and I didn't hear this for a long time, but all those bended notes, that's not in classical music, that's not in Celtic music. That all comes from the blues. And that African-American blues culture is really permeated in bluegrass. Tin Pan Alley, jazz, other contemporary influences. So it's a real mixture. It's American, but it comes from all over. The banjo, for a long time, people said, oh, this is an American instrument, but no, it doesn't. It goes back to Africa. There are similar instruments all through, going back hundreds of years of Africa, of gourds covered with skin and a string stretched across them, and that's a banjo. And they were playing those hundreds of years ago. They're brought over by the enslaved. They didn't actually bring the instruments with them, but they brought the concept of the banjo with them because it was important to their culture, especially their spiritual practices. It was a way to facilitate dancing, and dancing in their culture was a way to communicate with your spirits, to show your faith and that sort of thing. So the banjo goes way back and has all sorts of layers, and it's very complex and very interesting. Bluegrass also has origins in Appalachia, with Bill Monroe, who was a star on the Grand Ole Opry going back in the 1930s, creating this genre of bluegrass. He put together a band that had this certain sound that was different, and it grabbed people's attention. And because it was unique, they wanted a name for it, wanted to make it different, and it came to be known later as bluegrass. He was a mandolin player, but strongly influenced by his uncle, who was the fiddle player, Penn Vandiver. And so while he played mandolin, fiddle was really kind of the instrument that he organized everything around. The fiddle was all about it for him. Banjo, guitar, mandolin, bass, and dobro. And you might not know what a dobro is. It's kind of a acoustic slide guitar. It's called a Hawaiian guitar. You'll see a guy with a guitar, it looks like it's turned sideways, and he's playing it with the bar, and he's sliding the notes. That's called a dobro. It's actually called a resophonic guitar. A dobro is the brand name. A dobro was the Dopro brothers. It was Italian brothers. Again, other influences. Italian brothers who created this instrument. And it comes from Hawaii. There was a craze in the 1920s of Hawaiian music in the United States, and it was very popular to be playing a Hawaiian guitar, which you played with the bar and you made those noises, and that ended up in bluegrass. The themes in bluegrass: nostalgia. Nostalgia is a really big thing in bluegrass. Oh, I want to go back to the home place. I miss mom and dad. I miss the old home place. Even for people who didn't grow up in that kind of experience, kind of have this fake nostalgia for it. Even city guys like me sing about that stuff. Love, loss, death. Rural, yes. There are all sorts of songs going, I yearn to go back. There's absolutely no song in bluegrass says, I want to get to the city. It's always, the city is always bad. Yeah, went to the city, I lost everything, I ruined my life, and I got back home and I got right again. That's bluegrass. One time I was working at WOSU, we had a Somali community group come in for a tour, and they were giving them the usual tour and getting ready to leave. And a guy came up to me and he says, I want to see where you do the Bluegrass Ramble. And I said, you listen to the Bluegrass Ramble? And he says, oh yeah. He says, every Saturday night, they're singing about the same things we sing about. And it's that love, loss, death. I mean, it was those themes that he was identifying with. So in a way, it's a very particular music, but it's also, can be widely listened to and enjoyed.
And just to add some additional information about Bill Monroe, we're going to talk a little bit about the migration of people from parts of the United States to the north to find work, in factories and things. Bill Monroe was the same way. He had started playing music with his brothers, Charlie Monroe and Birch Monroe, and they found themselves going to Chicago and looking for work. And Bill Monroe was really a dancer before he became a musician. He was quite the dancer. And then he and his brother Charlie began recording together. And then Bill Monroe and Charlie Monroe were kind of in a race, a brotherly race, to build a sound and a notoriety in the music that they played. And I guess you might say Bill Monroe sort of won the race because he was auditioned. He heard that his brother Charlie was going to audition for the Grand Ole Opry. So Bill hurried up and got together and auditioned before Charlie got there, and was then invited to join the Grand Ole Opry in 1939. And that's when Bill Monroe was told, Bill, if you ever leave, you're going to have to fire yourself from the Grand Ole Opry. And he's been a member of the Opry ever since.
You might think you have problems with your brother, but Charlie and Bill, just think about that. Charlie's singing, boy, I got to get down there Tuesday to get down to my audition. And meanwhile, my brother Bill has gotten his car, gone right down and got there Monday without telling anybody. And he wasn't invited, by the way. He invited himself. So Rich is talking about this, what's called the Trans-Appalachian Migration. Yes?
Did the brother ever get in the Grand Ole Opry?
Charlie never became a member, but he did perform with the Grand Ole
there.
Opry. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they kind of reconciled. They also almost killed each other once, literally, with a knife. But it's just, it's just more family drama. So this Trans-Appalachian Migration, Rich is right about that. And I always thought of this as kind of a World War II phenomenon, where all of a sudden, America's industry has to be supercharged to fight the Axis. Well, no, it happened before that. Bill and Charlie and the brothers, they were in Chicago from Kentucky even before the war. They were back there in the 30s. So even before World War II, there was this push. And the people from Kentucky and West Virginia are going to cities like Detroit, Dayton, Cincinnati, Canton, and Columbus, especially after World War II, but even before. Now, the thing that's different about Columbus is it's not an industrial city. We had Buckeye Steel, we had a lot of industry on the south side, but not in the way that these other cities, Cincinnati, Canton, Detroit, Dayton, because they're on navigable waterways, and there's all sorts of huge steel industries down there, and there's all sorts of this need for blue-collar workers, Columbus is mainly government, insurance, medical, even back then, and there weren't insurance underwriters seeking to leave Kentucky for better circumstances, that wasn't happening. But there was a huge Trans-Appalachian migration, and there was a couple of decades after the Second World War when 2/3 of people living in Columbus were either first or second generation Kentuckians or West Virginians. You feel it still today. You can, especially on the south side, you can see the presence of the Southern culture there. And you might have heard this, Dwight Yoakam, who is, by the way, a Columbus guy, he wrote about this, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and Route 23 to Ohio. And that's a pretty famous song. Dwight Yoakam, Columbus guy, went to high school here. We used to do a thing at on WSU where we go to the archives at Ohio History Center, and they have a pair of Dwight's jeans there that he had put studs on them, to make them look they were fancy. He's a little guy. Those jeans are really short. He's kind of a small guy. Well, the south side was where the industry was, most of the industry in Columbus. It had been in downtown, and then as that property got more expensive, it went south. U.S. Steel, Federal Glass, American Standard, they were all out there. And in the teens and 20s, it was mostly European workers, a lot of European workers working there. That's why you might see there's German Village and there's Hungarian Village. Those Hungarians were there working at Buckeye Steel and Federal Glass and that sort of thing. But that started to change. One reason is because the turnover at Buckeye Steel was tremendous. Buckeye Steel had a 300% turnover rate, so they had to hire 3 labor forces a year. So they were just burning through people. They couldn't get Eastern Europeans in there quickly enough. I also know that immigration was really restricted in the 20s, and I'm not sure if that was part of it too. I need to do some more research. But anyway, especially after World War II, these industries started looking south to fill these labor needs. I mean, just think what's happening after the war. The middle class is growing. Everybody's buying a car. Everybody's getting a house. You got to make all that stuff. It's got to have steel, and it's coming out of places like Buckeye Steel. And it's true that Buckeye Steel sent buses down to Kentucky and West Virginia, and just loaded guys up and said, "Hey, get on. You got work here. We'll bring you up here in this bus." And that happened for a long time. Well, when people move, their culture goes with them, and that happens, of course, with the Appalachians who came to Columbus. Culture is expressed in a number of ways. Religion, the Baptist Church, Southside Baptist Church, which, by the way, until a few years ago was offering bluegrass lessons to the kids there. Food, that looked kind of like chicken fried steak and potatoes, and that kind of looks like a Southern Appalachian meal to me. And then dancing and music, that's another cultural expression. So these folks came up from Kentucky and West Virginia. They brought their music with them. And so bluegrass finds its way into Columbus almost immediately after bluegrass is invented. 1948, Bill Monroe has his first show at the Veterans Hall, which was where COSI used to be, right? So they used to do music shows there. And here's Bill Monroe and Pee Wee King and the Georgia Crackers. This is, I think this is about 1948 also. Grand Ole Opry. Oh, I got to use my laser pointers. I'm so excited about this. Whoops. There it is. Bill Monroe, Cowboy Copus, Minnie Pearl, Uncle Dave Macon, Jam Up and Honey. This was a blackface act. That was still going on then. And this is interesting. Kirk McGee and the Bluegrass Trio. Bluegrass doesn't start to be used identifying what we know as bluegrass music until the 50s, but yet even in 48 they're using this term. So that's pretty interesting about this advertising from Memorial Hall here in Columbus.
And this is pretty significant, really, when you think about it. If Bill Monroe's first sort of recognized appearance was in 1948, it wasn't till December of 1945 that the structure of bluegrass music as we know it today appeared on the Grand Ole Opry. So in 3 years, he found his way to Columbus to take this new music. In fact, it was December of 45, so it's really 1946. So it's really 2 years that he ended up, if you would, sharing his music creation with people in Columbus. So Columbus early on really played a distinct role.
The business model was you got on the Grand Ole Opry where people could hear you. You got publicity and notoriety, And then as soon as the show was over, you hopped in your car and you drove somewhere and you played a show. You played a schoolhouse, you played a veterans hall, you played a Grange hall, you played a VFW. You did that every night until you had to get back next Saturday night and do it all over again. And in fact, one of Bill's first songs was called Heavy Traffic Ahead. And they're talking about they got to get on down the road and play that show and get back to the Grand Ole Opry on Saturday night. So the folks that are coming up from Kentucky and West Virginia are living close to where they work, which is on the south side, which we now know as German Village, Marion Village, Hungarian Village, Parsons, other side of Parsons. And that's where, people start building up businesses to cater to them. So bluegrass clubs take root on the south side. And one of the most famous is called the Parmar. Anybody want to guess why it's called the Parmar? Well, you can read it here. It's because it's at the intersection of Parsons and Marion Avenue. And so you think about it, that's a 7-minute walk from Buckeye Steel. So you get off your shift and you don't want to go home yet. You want to get a beer. You've been working around the furnaces all day long. You want to cool off. You go ahead and walk down to one of these clubs. You have some beer. You listen to music. You dance a little bit. You maybe fight a little bit. Maybe fight a lot. And you go home. So that's the Parmar. This is across. This building's still here. This building has been empty for years and years and years. But this is the old Astro Inn. And this intersection was the heart of bluegrass on the south side. One block north was Hillbilly Records. That's where you went and got your bluegrass records at that time. This would have been, beginning in the 50s. One of the guys who was around then said the woman who ran Early Bird Record Shop was really mean. he had to go in there, but it was the only place you could get the records. Astro Inn used to be called the Sabre Inn, and it was named for the Sabre jet that was made out at Wright, at Curtis, out at the airport. Local and regional acts played at these bars. Here on the right is Larry Sparks. He's still going. And that's him as a teenager just about, and he's playing here with Ralph Stanley. You might have heard of the Stanley Brothers, big act. Ralph Stanley was the guy who sang "Oh Death" in the movie "Oh Brother Where Art Thou," so he's a big name. He died about 10 years ago. And then local acts played too. Here's this gentleman right here. This is Tom Ewing. Tom Ewing was a high school English teacher here in Columbus who fell in love with folk music and then got interested in bluegrass from that. And he's the guy who started the Bluegrass Ramble that Rich now does every third week. More about Tom Ewing in a moment. That's what the inside of the clubs look like. This little wall here is kind of famous. There's this kind of cardboard, this kind of a cardboard fake brick, So you kept the entertainers on one side and the other folks on the other side.
That protected them from flying knives.
I went back and looked back in the dispatch at all the mentions of this Astro Inn and the Parmar, the Bluegrass Palace. And mostly I found were articles like this, where the manager of a Southside bar was arrested by the FBI Thursday on a charge of receiving and transporting an auto that had been stolen in Alabama. A knifing behind the Bluegrass Palace. They were rough. I mean, it was, these guys worked hard at Parsons, at Buckeye Steel and come down there, they were tough guys. Liquor law violations at Bluegrass Palace.
Do any of these names mean anything? The interview traveled Parsons Avenue back in those times. So these names are ringing a bell with you, right?
When I came here,
Astro Inn and Amos Inn and Bluegrass Palace, those are.
When I first came here, I noticed that this was the place you went to buy used appliances. That was kind of what was going on up and down Parsons. Funny thing happened though in the 60s. It wasn't just factory workers sitting in the audience all of a sudden. And that was because of something called the folk boom or the folk scare. And started with the Kingston Trio, the Weavers, then Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger. folk music became very popular. Hootenannies on TV. You might remember the Hootenanny TV show. Became very popular music, and college students loved it. And college students wanted to go beyond folk, the commercialized folk music of Peter, Paul, and Mary. They wanted the real thing. They wanted to get to the roots. And to them, bluegrass was a kind of more authentic or higher grade or more visceral kind of folk music. So they sought it out. And they started going to these clubs. Now, the big folk club in Columbus was the Sacred Mushroom. Anybody remember the Sacred Mushroom? Anybody been to the Sacred Mushroom? As I understand it, the Sacred Mushroom was upstairs where the theater is now, the Newport. And one of the most famous names in folk music, he was a rival of Bob Dylan, was Phil Oakes. Great musician. And he was a Columbus guy, you know. You could say he grew up in Bexley. That's where his parents lived, but they shipped him off to military school. But he was at Ohio State. And he was a journalism student there and then got interested in music. Wrote some great songs that are still being sung. But anyway, the Sacred Mushroom was where they hung out. And that's where Tom Ewing was hanging out. And that's where he got interested in bluegrass. And he heard Bill Monroe, and he just got, when he heard that, he had to follow that passion. Now, this is also interesting because it works both ways. The bluegrass musicians, not only did college students start going to the bluegrass clubs, but the artists playing in the bluegrass clubs started playing at the folk clubs. So the Sacred Mushroom starts here, and they're having Sid Campbell and the Bluegrass Partners. And that's a local band. Sid Campbell, another guy on the Bluegrass Ramble.
Yep, Sid Campbell, Tom Ewing, who started the program, as Brent mentioned, back in 1978, recruited Sid Campbell. Sid Campbell was also in education. He was a teacher, and I think eventually became a principal of one of the schools in Columbus. But he had a passion for bluegrass music, and in fact, Sid Campbell he was right up there like second or third host of the Bluegrass Ramble, and stayed there for several years, and he spent 10 years as lead singer and rhythm guitar player for Don Reno and the Tennessee Cut-Ups at the time. So Sid Campbell was a major force in bringing bluegrass music to Columbus back in the 60s and 70s.
These guys would have been playing about for $10 a night if they got paid. This guitar, and maybe this one, I'm not sure, but one of Sid Campbell's guitars I saw in Nashville at Carter Vintage Guitars about 10 years ago, and it was being sold. It had a price tag of, I think, $140,000 on it.
Whoa.
They would never have dreamed of that.
I actually got to play it. I was at Carter Vintage Guitars, and the guitar was literally hanging behind a glass case with a lock on it, as they kept all their really high-end vintage instruments. And for some crazy reason, they let me play it. I got a picture of it, and you're right. It was the ticket on it was right around $140.
Yeah.
And it probably cost new what, $2,000, $1,500?
Oh, back then,
yeah,
800 maybe. You know.
Yeah. So.
Well, these college students I've talked about, they start exploring bluegrass, and you know, Columbus has a lot of college students. Always has. Per capita, I've read that only Boston has more per capita college students than Columbus. And you know, students from OSU, Gambier, Ohio University, Otterbein, Oberlin, and other schools visit bluegrass because they're looking for that authentic folk music experience. It's really interesting. These clubs became a place where people of differing backgrounds could gather. We don't have much of that these days, you know? We all look for our own group, and we don't stray from that too much. Now, I'm not sure how much interaction there was between college kids and shift workers at Buckeye Steel. Some of the guys said, you know, they stayed on their side, we stayed on our side, they had fights, we stayed out of them. But, you know, they were welcoming to us, they didn't challenge us, you know. So it was a place where, you hear the term third space, you know, it was a third space that worked where people of different backgrounds could be together and enjoy something. Well, I talked about in local entrepreneurs meeting the need of these folks. Well, the South Side really became a kind of a bluegrass enterprise zone. And this is a map from, you know, about, well, it goes from 53 to 86 in here, I think. And you see different things. There are different clubs. There's Early Bird Records, Deebles, Bluegrass every Thursday evening, Lockboard Lounge, another club. Bluegrass Record and Tape Shop was started in 1968. John Barriga, still going. I mean, he's now at a different location, but he's been in business since 1968. And that, for a long time, that was kind of the soul of bluegrass music in Columbus. Everybody, it's like the barbershop, how guys used to gather at a barbershop. Everybody on Saturday went down there and hung out, and you went down in his cellar and played music. Guys still do that. You can walk down there any Saturday night and you see people playing music. It's not quite as, doesn't quite thrive like it used to because there's competition. And John's really challenged because, you know, record sales, cassettes, CDs, nobody's buying him anymore. And the proof is that he's got a whole store full of that stuff that nobody's looked at in 20 years, you know. He does sell instruments. And Cafe Costa, another bar, Doug's Old Landmark Cafe, Bluegrass Music Supply, that's now what this was. Doug's Newgrass Tavern, Lois Mann's Restaurant. Lois Mann's, she's still going?
She is. She's still going on South Parsons Avenue. She has a jam session there every Wednesday. And on occasion, on weekends, she'll have a live band.
That's a Meat and Three restaurant. It was on Parsons. It's on High now.
Yes.
Across from what used to be Dan's Drive-In, which has also changed hands. Astro Inn, Bluegrass Palace, and the Paramar. So, you know, bluegrass was industry here for a little while. Still is in a way. Other clubs spring up. There was Chet's, a bluegrass club in the short, what we call the Short North now, I guess. In 1964, Jerry Garcia, you might know that name from the Grateful Dead. Well, he was a huge bluegrass guy, a good banjo player. He loved bluegrass and played it all his career. Even when he was with the Dead, he had projects where he did bluegrass and played banjo. There's a famous, he wanted to play with Bill Monroe, and he and a guy named Sandy Rothman drove from San Francisco to New Jersey to try to meet Bill Monroe. It didn't work out, but they stopped one night here at a place called Chet's and had a local jam with guys, and some of those guys are still around, and they talk about the night Jerry Garcia dropped in and they all jammed. The Country Palace is out on Williams Road, south of town. That's where Tom Ewing, who we've talked about, he met Bill Monroe. He had his first audition with Bill Monroe there. He'd go on working with Bill Monroe, and he would write the definitive biography of Bill Monroe called The Life and Music of the Bluegrass Man, a comprehensive account of Bill Monroe. So the guy who writes the most thorough account of the most important figure in bluegrass is from Columbus. So again, a huge tie linking bluegrass with Columbus.
And in fact, he still lives in Sunbury, Ohio. He's, I think he celebrated his 89th birthday, I think, just recently.
The Amos Inn, Bluegrass to the Northern Lights Shopping Center. Bluegrass is moving out of the south side. I want to talk about one more thing here that's kind of fun. The first time that bluegrass music is used as soundtrack, they think, happened in Columbus, Ohio. And it was a recruiting film that Woody Hayes hated. He used to go out, and, you know, they go out to booster clubs and all over Ohio, you know, and he'd do his speech, you know, and he showed a film of guys playing football, and Sid Campbell and some other guys recorded a soundtrack for it. And so it was bluegrass music, and they sped up the football practice. So you see the guys running, and it's fast music. And Woody Hayes hated it, but people loved it. But one of the guys who saw that, who knew about that, was the guy who went on to create the Beverly Hillbillies. That's probably where you got the idea of using bluegrass for that show. And also, if you think about Bonnie and Clyde, the chase scenes, bluegrass music in the background, it probably links back to this use of music with Woody Hayes and Bluegrass and Sid Campbell and those guys in Columbus, Ohio. So this is, we're getting in the middle 60s now, and Bluegrass is moving out of the South Side. You don't have to go to the South Side all the time to get Bluegrass. Here it is we're at the Aztec Room on 3540 East Broad Street. Does that address mean anything to anybody here? You know what it is, don't you, Rich?
Yeah, over where the Desert Inn was, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Didn't that become something else?
Well, it became the Playboy Club.
That's right, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. That was Columbus's first and only one-time Playboy Club. Didn't last very long.
So they got a full Bluegrass lineup here. Here's Les Sidewalk Cafe. Nothing says Bluegrass like Les Sidewalk Cafe. This is at the Continent. You know, let's have a moment of silence for the Continent.
Yeah.
And look here, here's a Lazarus ad in the paper. And you can't read the fine print, but Bill Monroe's in here. So you don't have to go to that nasty lady down on Parsons anymore in her crummy record store. You can go to the big uptown, you can catch the bus and go to the big uptown department store in downtown Columbus and get your Bill Monroe record.
Look at those inflated prices.
$2.98 for an album. Who do they think
$2.98.
they are?
Yeah, yeah.
So the mainstream discovers bluegrass. Beverly Hillbillies starts using the music about 1964. This is 1968 Columbus Dispatch. And there used to be you remember the Sunday magazine the Dispatch used to have?
Yeah.
Here it is. It's the cover story. On almost any summer Sunday afternoon, somewhere in Ohio, there's a crowd of people listening to bluegrass, a form of music a large percentage of the population doesn't even know exists. The Columbus Dispatch, 1968. This was an article written by a woman named Marty Godby. Frank Godby, her husband, grew up here in Columbus. He studied at Ohio State. They were some of those college students who were hanging out at the Astro Inn at the Bluegrass Palace. Frank Godby was a musician, played in some bands. He taught computer science, one of the early computer science guys at the University of Kentucky. And he put together the first bluegrass discussion list on the internet back when it was young, and which was the first place that people met virtually to talk about bluegrass. Another interesting Columbus connection.
I remember when there was 10 people on that online list. Frank put it together at and introduced it at the International Bluegrass Music Association meeting, and there were 10 people. I was one of the 10. And we reported the award ceremony through that list, and it was all just text. It was, there were no pictures back then or anything online, not like the internet is today. And Frank Godby also started, as far as I can remember, the first bluegrass radio show here in WMNI radio, WMNI AM radio at the time.
Bluegrass is interesting that a lot of people who listen to bluegrass actually play bluegrass. They have a guitar in the closet or a banjo or something like that. And at any festival or any event you go to, there are almost as many people playing out in the parking lot as there are listening to it. And that's always been a big feature of the music. It's weird, you go to a rock concert, there's not people in the parking lot playing rock guitar. You go to a blues concert, there's not blues people sitting in the parking lot. It's unique to bluegrass. This is, back in the day in a festival in the 60s. You can see it's all white guys. They're playing music. They're having a good time. This is Denison University 3 years ago. And Denison now, as I mentioned, has a major in bluegrass, or roots music. Adam Schlinker is the coordinator, the director of that program. They have a festival every February. We just went there 3 weeks ago. But look at the different folks represented here. Here's Gwen on mandolin. She's about my age and just discovered mandolin recently and has taken it with a passion and is learning like you can't believe. This young woman was a student at Denison. These are other students. Hayes here grew up in Newark, and now he's on the faculty there. He went to the Boston Conservatory, or New England Conservatory of Music, and now is playing mandolin. Phenomenal musician. This was a visiting musician from Chicago, brought in for a concert that night and doing a workshop during the day. So it's really interesting in the participation and also how the demographic of people participating has changed so much. We've talked about indoor venues. Another big thing with bluegrass is outdoor venues, festivals. First one was in 1965, and they were happening in Columbus not very long after that. Oh, excuse me. I'm so happy to use this laser, I keep hitting the wrong button. Spring Lakes and Fishing Club was out town, east of town on Highway 40. Red Allen show. Red Allen was a pretty big star. He did mostly from over in Dayton. Frontier Ranch. Anybody been to Frontier Ranch? This was a huge event, outdoor festival, 50 miles east of Columbus on Route 40. Had a huge festival every year, Bluegrass Festival. Here we have Bill Monroe, Hilo Brown. Hilo Brown, one of the great names in bluegrass, you know Hilo. And he used to demonstrate all that time by he'd sing high and low in a song.
He lived in Mechanicsburg, Ohio, in fact.
Clinch Mountain Boys. This was an annual event, and I swear if you get old timers together, you won't go 5 minutes without people talking about the year the big storm came through Frontier Ranch and everybody got stuck in the mud. And it was a huge deal. Another big bluegrass show. Bill Monroe, Lester Flatt, Jim and Jesse, Jim Greer and the Macochi Folk. That sounds like something you eat, the Macochi Folk. They're from over in around Wapakoneta. Musicians Against Childhood Cancer, the MAC. This was the really big festival in Columbus for many years. Daryl Atkins was involved with Frontier Ranch, and he got tired because they had the same old people all the time, and he wanted to do something different, so he started this festival. He and his wife had a daughter, Mandy, who died of a form of childhood leukemia, so they organized this concert as a benefit for research. And every year, nationally known bluegrass musicians came to the Hoover Y Park south of town to perform in a 4-day festival. It was a huge deal. And one year they recorded did a live recording of the festival, and that went on to win a Grammy Award. It was a wonderful recording. It lasted from 98 to 2018. Really great festival. By the way, this site, the Hoover Y site, has been taken over by Metro Parks, and it is going to be known as Bank Run when it opens. And it had better open by the first weekend of June, because that's when the Columbus Folk Music Society is going to hold their annual festival there. It used to be right up the road here at
High Banks.
High Banks. We've outgrown it, so now we're moving to this new park. Bank Run is a purpose-built park for festivals and events. So it's got a big stage. We're really excited about being able to use this new facility. I think it's going to be great. So be looking for it in June. It's not a bluegrass event, but we'll have several bluegrass bands there. It's always great music.
And just one footnote on the Musicians Against Childhood Cancer. Over the years, they've raised over $1 million for cancer research at St. Jude in Memphis. So the proceeds of that festival every year went to St. Jude. So it has to be some kind of, record for, that kind of generation of money for that kind of purpose.
Bluegrass Ramble, I mentioned that. A certain gentleman in the room has an affiliation with that.
That's right.
Columbus Institution. It was interesting. It started when we were on AM radio. AM has to, we had to reduce our power when the sun went down. So during the day, you could listen to WOSU all around. At nighttime, if you got about 3 blocks away, you'd have trouble picking it up. And there were some times when you chose that because of a hockey game, you'd be on like for 8-10 minutes and have to shut it off, and you'd transition to OSU hockey.
That's right. And then other times in December, when the sun went down at 6:15, the show started at 6. We were off at 6:15 because the sun went down. So, and then in the summer, of course, we were on for like 4 hours or something. So,
anyway, it's an institution. It's not the only Bluegrass Ramble. That's not the oldest Bluegrass Ramble. There's a Bluegrass radio show in upstate New York by the same name. I see this guy every year at the big Bluegrass convention, and we get a big laugh out of that fact that we have worked for the same radio show. These are the guys doing it now. That's Rich Baker right there. This is Chet DeLong, former policeman, and this is Chris Johnston. Chris worked for the county, but he has worked in radio. He's just got a passion for radio, and he loves it, and he's been working in radio since he was in high school. He grew up in Dublin, but not far from here. We had a really fun time, a 40th reunion. We did a live show at the Fawcett Center, broadcasted on the radio. Rich's band played. That's Rich playing mandolin here. And Tom Ewing guested with him. And that was really a fun event. Well, what happened to all those Southside Bluegrass clubs? Well, Suburban Flight, all those Hungarians. How many Hungarians live in Hungarian Village now? None. They all moved away. A lot of them to Grove City, in fact. Buckeye Steel gone, Frederick Glass gone, all that industry's gone. No jobs anymore. When the jobs go, the neighborhood goes. Bluegrass has come and gone. There have been up times, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou comes out, and everybody's listening to it. It's on the radio, and then it disappears for several years. It's in something of a resurgence right now, thanks to a young man named Billy Strings, who's a phenomenal young man who's an incredible player, grew up in a family that loved bluegrass, and he's also a kid who played metal too, played metal bands. So he's able to bring both of these sensibilities to the music and brings crowds to it. The records were easy to get, and records in way, the internet. You could get bluegrass on the internet, Sirius, and there's just so many things you do with your entertainment time now. It's bluegrass is a smaller piece of the pie. There are books about bluegrass in two cities that are really interesting. They're both available. Industrial strength bluegrass is a term that happened to bluegrass in Cincinnati to Dayton. And everything that happened in bluegrass here happened there too, just on a larger scale, because there are more people there. Because of the industry, there are more blue-collar workers, there are more Kentuckians, there are more transplants there, bigger audience. So there are more clubs, more radio activity, recording studios there. We never had really there was one recording studio here, but there were several recording studios there and labels. And this book talks about that experience and how it affected Cincinnati, Dayton, Southwest Ohio. Bluegrass Odyssey is a picture, a book, kind of a photo documentary, not just about Columbus, but Columbus is prominently featured in it, about that heyday of bluegrass, which was 66 to 86, I would say. And it's done by Carl Fleischberger and Neil Rosenberg. They were two of those college kids we talked about. Neil was up at Oberlin, I guess. Neil went on to become the foremost folklorist who wrote kind of the most thorough and respected history of bluegrass music, called, oddly enough, Bluegrass: A History. And Carl Fleischberger went on to work in Washington at the Library of Congress, I believe it was. And it's a beautiful book about these small venues we've talked about, the festivals, the mom and pop nature of the show, shows who played it, who listened to it. It's really a fascinating book. But bluegrass is very much alive in Columbus today. A lot of people playing, as you can guess from that photograph of from Denison. Young people have an interest in it. Bluegrass Ramble continues. Used to be on 6 hours Saturday and 4 hours Sunday, right?
No, 6 and 6.
6 and 6. That's 12. That's a lot of real estate for bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's on 4 hours on Saturday, which is still a lot for a bluegrass, especially on an all-news station. To give 4 hours to bluegrass is really, I think, a real continuing commitment, outstanding commitment by the staff at WOSU. Not that I had made that decision, but I certainly advocated for it.
It's still one of the few locally produced
That's right.
programs in the country.
Yeah. We have main venues here where you can go hear live bluegrass. Natalie's, now down on King Avenue. Burns Pub has a bluegrass happy hour almost every Friday night. Rich is often there playing with his band. You've got to go see them. Slate Run. Woodlands Tavern has some pretty known bluegrass acts coming through. The Columbus Folk Music Society I just mentioned. In addition to the festival, we do monthly coffee houses and occasionally have bluegrass acts in there. Those are you can check their website, but they're at the Columbus Mennonite Church, just off High Street. And also we do events at the Reeb Center on the south side, taking bluegrass back to that community. And we also partner with Natalie's to do shows there. Rich produces a bluegrass series of concerts at the McConnell Arts Center. You want that to be your segue? You want to do right now, talk about
Sure.
What's going on up there?
Yeah, sure can.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I went to the street fair in Worthington, and the McConnell Arts Center had a tent up, and they were promoting memberships to the McConnell Arts Center. And I just went up to the executive director, who had only been there a short time, so she was very naive as to why I was talking to her. And I said, "Have you ever thought about having bluegrass music here?" And she said, "No, let's do that." So we started last year, and we'll have our next concert will be a week from this Saturday on March the 28th, where we will have the Tennessee Bluegrass Band from Nashville, Tennessee. And in case you're interested in seeing, you really have to see bluegrass music performed live. It's pretty spectacular. It's a high energy kind of evening. So if you're interested in coming to see one of these, I have several handouts here. I'll just leave them back at the front desk. This is March the 28th at the McConnell Arts Center in Worthington. Tickets available at mcconnellarts.org. And then in April, we have on April the 25th, for those of you who are interested in the banjo in particular, we have a guy by the name of Tony Trischka coming, who is a phenomenal banjo player, and he has transcribed some of the previously undiscovered recordings of Earl Scruggs, the guy who basically invented, if you will, bluegrass banjo. Tony Trischka has transcribed those heretofore undiscovered songs note for note, and he plays them note for note the way Earl Scruggs played them years and years ago. So April 25 for Tony Trischka at the McConnell Arts Center. We have the McConnell folks have been good enough to ask us to do 4 more concerts. So we're going to do March and April, as I just mentioned, and then we have October and November later this year, and then next year we already have March and May, and we'll be announcing who will be performing there in the not too distant future. So come out and see live bluegrass music, either at Natalie's, Burns Pub, by the way. I think they're celebrating 30 years of having the Bluegrass Happy Hour at an Irish pub in Grandview, and then the other places there that you've mentioned. So come on out to McConnell when you can.
Those are great bands. They're wonderful bands. Also, that's a beautiful facility. You know, I love going to theaters, but I don't like theaters where you get crunched up in your seat and people step on you when they try to get past you. Plenty of legroom at that theater. It's about a 200-seat theater. It's tiered seating. There's not a bad seat in the house. You won't have a better listening and viewing experience than at McConnell Arts Center. Denison Roots music program I talked about, private lessons and virtual learning. We have a Jam Central Ohio is a group of people who jam twice a week. Monday nights at the Summit Music Hall, which is a bar just north of Lane on High Street, on Summit rather. Everybody's welcome. The level of participation is up to you. Bring your instrument and stand in the back or come right up into the circle. And there's also one every Wednesday night at the Eagles Lodge out on
On Westerville Road.
Westerville Road.
Mm-hmm.
And you're welcome. We also have once a month, we have a big jam at the Clinton Heights Lutheran Church, which sits at nearly Broadway and High Street in Columbus. Just go to Facebook and look for Jam Central. That's our Facebook page. You can scan that too. We would love to have you. We have folks of all age and all levels. That's really one of the things about Bluegrass. It's participation, and you encourage folks to come. You can also learn more about Bluegrass in Columbus with a website called columbusbluegrass.org. This is something I'm working on. It's a work in progress, but you can come on in and take a look. One of the cool things is it's got a map of, clickable map of Central Ohio bluegrass locations. There's about 70 historic sites, I call them historic sites, that have a link to bluegrass. Not many in this area. I checked before I came there. I can't find a lot of bluegrass historic events happening up here. So if you know something, let me know. columbusbluegrass.org. With that, that's Ernest Tubb. He's not bluegrass, but we do some of his songs. Thanks. Are there any questions anything? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where are these days is bluegrass most popular or spread out?
That's a good question.
What's the range, I guess?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
It's really popular all over. You'd be surprised at how popular it is in New England. Berklee College of Music in Boston, which was a jazz and classical school, now turns out hotshot bluegrass musicians by the dozens every year, and young kids flock there to go to school. Big scene in Brooklyn, North Carolina, Nashville, of course. A huge scene in Colorado, Denver. Telluride is a huge festival. Rocky Grass is in Boulder. Bluegrass here, you go to a concert here, it tends to be people my age, so an older crowd. You go out to Colorado, it tends to be people more like your age, a little younger, which is really cool. Not that your folks your age don't come to events here too. And, we love it to see more younger folks come. But it's a different style of music. Also, there are different kinds of bluegrass. There's the very traditional bluegrass like Rich is having in 2 weeks at the McCullough Arts Center. That's a very traditional. You see the guys are wearing matching blazers and slacks, And then out west you have jamgrass, where guys are coming out of the kind of a Grateful Dead jamgrass tradition, and they're enjoying all sorts of legal things now and playing 20-minute songs.
They just think they're 20 minutes.
Yeah. But that is interesting. I mentioned Jerry Garcia. So there's this connection now between Jerry Garcia that goes to the Grateful Dead, to jamgrass, to Billy Strings, to Cheese String Incident, to Incredible String Dusters, some of those other jamgrass bands, Green Sky Bluegrass, Treble by Turtles. So all kinds of music. And those are some of the places where it's really popular. And then there's some places you go where there's kind of a bluegrass desert too, Alan.
I don't know if I should ask this question or not, but does Bluegrass Ramble hold its own in the membership drives at WOSU?
Yes, I think generally speaking, in terms of the music is a kind of a niche music, so it has a small but highly dedicated audience. So from that standpoint, yes, it has done quite well. Otherwise, I don't think they would have kept us around for 48 years.
We're not.
But it's not going to be like some of the PBS programs, or NPR programs rather, and so forth. But yes, it does. It holds its own. Yeah.
When I was at WOSU and in some of those meetings, you always heard, look, don't do anything to offend the bluegrass fans or the opera fans because they're just too passionate. It's not worth it. They just cause too much trouble. Just leave them alone. Yes.
I don't remember the name of the church, but I'll have to give them a plug. It took us 10 years to find out about this, but in Marysville, every winter, they have, what do they call it, a bluegrass?
It's a winter classic.
And it's one concert in January, one in February, one March, one
Right,
April.
yeah.
And usually about this time around St. Patrick's Day, Rhonda Vincent.
She was there last week.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that was kind of started by Chet DeLong, who was another
Yeah.
one of
Okay.
Yeah.
Rich's-
You know about it.
Yeah,
Rich's.
It's
Which is
the Marysville series, they call that, and the money goes to raise for the programming of the men's program group of the church. So it goes to a really good cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
That has been a mainstay for several years.
There's stuff happening all under the radar all the time. Yesterday
Yeah.
I was in Circleville, just 30 miles south of here, for the American Fiddle Masters. Rich was there too. American Fiddle Masters Classic. It was a concert at the Presbyterian Church there to benefit their homeless food pantry and shelter. Raised a lot of money for them. Great, wonderful musicians playing country fiddle, and it wasn't so much bluegrass, but there's a little bit of bluegrass. But a great event. And there's stuff like this popping up all the time that you just kind of, you have to keep your eyes open to see it, to know about it. Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to give us a little sample?
Well, gee whiz.
We just happen to have our.
Well, yeah, if you force us. No, it's funny, we talk about bluegrass and then sometimes people really don't know what it sounds like. So we'll play a little something. If we generally have a full band for bluegrass, and the full band would be guitar, mandolin, banjo, fiddle maybe, mandolin probably, and bass guitar. But we'll try to do it with two instruments.
Which is why you need to come to these concerts and see the full bluegrass band in action.
I'm really not a guitar player, so
Anybody know what this is? Mandolin? Yep. It's tuned like a violin, but instead of having 4 strings, it has 8. And this is the instrument that Bill Monroe used to drive bluegrass music, basically. So
they talk about the mandolin being the snare drum of bluegrass, because
music,
it's hitting on that beat that the snare hits in rock. Bill Monroe is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, by the way. And if you listen to Bill Monroe, even from 1945, those first recordings, you can hear rock and roll, elements of rock and roll in that music. And he's a strong contributor to the sound of rock and roll.
Elvis's first song was a bluegrass song. His first hit song was a bluegrass song.
Do you do that song?
Blew into Kentucky? Not in a long time.
Okay. All right. Anyway, Monroe did it as a waltz. And
that's true.
Elvis recorded as a 4/4, as a rock and roll song. And, Monroe was kind of a difficult guy, and people thought he might be offended. And they asked him, and he says, "No, those were powerful checks." So he made a lot of money. And in fact, the checks are so powerful, he made his own 4/4 version. He started with 3/4.
That's right.
And then did the 4/4 coming after that, right?
And did it ever since.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
Well, let's see. Let's try an old. This is an old song. Goes back to the Carter family, I think. Let's do "My Home's Across the Blue Ridge Mountain."
Okay.
My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. And I never expect to see you anymore. Goodbye, my little Nashville darling. Goodbye, my little Nashville darling. Goodbye, my little Nashville darling. I never expect to see you anymore.
My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. And I never expect to see you anymore.
I've been riding with old Mosby. I've been riding with old Mosby. I've been riding with old Mosby, and I never expect to see
My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountain. And I'll never expect to see you anymore. And I'll never expect to see you anymore.
You can hear there Rich keeping the percussion, the rhythm in a big way, with the chop. It's called the chop.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you have one you want to do, or?
No, go ahead.
All right.
You're doing great.
Oh yeah, sure. the guy who couldn't talk during the evening is now singing. Well, let's see. We mentioned the Stanley Brothers. This is a song they did, although this song goes back to the Bristol Sessions, which is 1927, some of the first recordings done in country music. That's where the Carter family was discovered. That's where Jimmy Rogers was discovered. It was really the birth of, it's the big boom of country music. If you watch the Ken Burns country music documentary series years ago, they spent a long time on the Bristol Sessions. By the way, if you're ever in that part of the country, stop at Bristol and go to the country music.
The birthplace of country music.
Country Music Museum there. It's a Smithsonian affiliated museum, and it is fantastic.
It really is. It's an amazing place. Great history. I mean, you can go through it in about an hour or so and get a good sense of the history of country music.
Yep.
And you can stand in the middle of the street and you can be in Tennessee and Virginia at the same time.
That's right. All right, this is called Bury Me Beneath the Willow. This, bluegrass songs, a lot were kind of maudlin, and here's one. My heart is sad and I am lonely for the only one I love. When will I see her? Oh, no, never until we meet in heaven above. Oh, bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I am sleeping, and perhaps she'll weep for me. She told me that she dearly loved me. Oh, how could I believe it untrue? Until the day the angel whispered she will prove untrue to you. Oh, bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I am sleeping, and perhaps you'll weep for me. Tomorrow was to have been our wedding. Oh God, where can she be? She's out a courting with another and no longer cares for me. Oh, bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I am sleeping, and then perhaps she'll weep for me. And perhaps you'll weep for me. I don't know the etymology of that song. It sounds to me like it may have had come down from an English ballad. A lot of these bluegrass songs go way back to the Isles and hundreds of years. and have those origins. That might be one.
You want to roll in my sweet baby's arms?
If you'll sing it, I don't sing it.
How about, you know, the chorus?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to do melody on that? You can tenor?
I'll switch.
Yeah,
to
okay.
Yeah, okay.
What key?
Probably G.
All right. Yeah.
Now where were you last Saturday night while I was lying in jail? I'm walking the streets with another man, couldn't even go my bail. Rolling in my sweet baby's arms, rolling my sweet baby's arms. Lay around the shack till the mail train comes back, rolling my sweet baby's arms. Well, I ain't gonna work on the railroad, ain't gonna work on the farm. I'll lay around the shack till the mail train comes back and roll in my sweet baby's arms. Roll in my sweet baby's arms, roll in my sweet baby's arms. Lay around the shack till the mail train comes back, roll in my sweet baby's arms. Well, I know your parents don't like me. They drove me away from your door, and my life to live over, or never go there anymore. I roll in my sweet baby's arms, roll in my sweet baby's arms. Lay around the shack till the mail train comes back, roll in my sweet baby's arms. And that's bluegrass.
There you
music.
go. That's it. That's it. Thanks so much.
Origins. Now where were you last Saturday night while I was lying in jail?